Vegeta loves big boobs, and we found out a ton of stuff that changes how we look at the entire Dragon Ball macrocosm universe, whatever you want to call it. It was an amazing episode, so join me as I break down episode 10 of Dragon Ball DAIMA. But before we get to that, my name is Tony. I've done translation, interpretation. I've taught Japanese. I have a master's degree in Japanese language and linguistics, and I love to use that knowledge to break down Dragon Ball and anime in general. So if you're into that sort of thing, make sure to subscribe, show me some support, comment, and like, because there's a lot more coming. So let's get into it. Here's 10 of the biggest Easter eggs and big moments we got in Dragon Ball DAIMA episode 10. Number 1, Majin Kuu was an absolute joke. I told you in my previous breakdown, this guy is not going to be the big boss. He's not going to be the big bad guy. No. Look at those lips. That is what the Japanese fandom, or at least some of the people that I saw on YouTube and whatnot, they were talking about the thick lips and how that's a giveaway that this isn't going to be the big bad of the show. And that's exactly what happened. This guy was an absolute joke, and I loved it. So hopefully you didn't fall for the big reveal at the end of last episode that Majin Kuu was going to be like this big evil threat. Because if you did, well, I highly recommend you go back and watch the original Dragon Ball. Get a little bit more used to Toriyama's humor because this is a classic joke. Set up that big thing, and then, it turned out to be this utterly stupid thing, right? Like kind of almost like the panties in the Pilaf saga, right? Like you set up this big epic thing, and what's the punchline? Oolong wishes for a pair of panties, and that saves the world, right? That is just wonderful. I love that kind of thing. And then that scene at the end of like the whole thing where Majin Kuu ends up giving up, right? He gives up to Tamagami number 1, and then in the ship with Dr. Arinsu, she says, you're fired, and then his voice, like the vocal performance of Seki Tomokazu. This guy's a legend. He was Toji in Neon Genesis Evangelion, Daru in Steins Gate, and I could keep going and going and going. This guy's an absolute legend, and his performance here is like, oh, come on, you're not firing me. I'm a good singer, and I'm fast, and I can run errands for you. I love that. The line and the delivery, just wonderful. So I love Majin Kuu. I know we're going to get more of Majin Kuu. This guy's probably going to end up fusing maybe with the other Majin that they're going to create with the seed that's left over, I'm assuming. I don't think this is going to be the end of Majin Kuu. Either he becomes a gag character, or he becomes like, something that can absorb other characters or fuse with the other Majin or something. Something's going to happen. Toriyama's going to throw another curveball at us, and I'm looking forward to see what happens with Majin Kuu. Number 2, Vegeta loves the boobs. I love this humor. This is really Dragon Ball-ish, right? Like even into Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super, there's a couple there's a few pervert jokes here or there, but this was it felt really Dragon Ball-ish, right? Not the like OG Dragon Ball. And Hybis, of course. Oh, just Hybis is I love Hybis. I'm loving Hybis right here. So this whole scene with Vegeta and Bulma and Piccolo and Hybis making their way into the second demon realm, as they travel, right? Loved it. The humor is there. And then Bulma makes a little reference back to the whole Pichi Pichi Gyaru thing. I think you could say that this is a Dragon Ball, OG Dragon Ball reference, where she says her skin and herself, she's Pichi Pichi because she's so young right now, right? And Pichi Pichi, as I've explained in a previous, where was it? My sex crimes video. Dragon Ball Sex Crimes. You can watch that one after this one. I mentioned the Pichi Pichi Gyaru thing. So, of course, back in the OG Dragon Ball, Master Roshi says, I'll train Krillin and Goku. He tells them, if you bring me a Pichi Pichi Gyaru, Pichi Pichi means like fresh and energetic and well, in this case, especially like her skin is so young and like elastic and beautiful, right? And so she uses the word Pichi Pichi. So I love that. That's a wonderful little callback to a classic, one of the most classic Dragon Ball jokes ever. Hybis then says like, I'm going to make you my girlfriend. The way that he says it, the Japanese that he uses, he's a very like commanding, very like forward guy. He's like, I'm gonna make you my girlfriend, right? That's kind of the nuance that statement that he makes has. And then, of course, Vegeta gets all outraged. And then Hybis says, oh, you got weirdo hair, right? Like, you got some strange hair there. I love it. And then finally, Piccolo, the perfect, just, at the end of that thing, he's like, yeah, turns out Vegeta did like those boobs. If you're not enjoying this humor, I'm sorry. Like, Daima is not for you. But just give it a chance. Give it a chance, because this is classic Dragon Ball humor. And like, these are some of the last gags that we are ever going to get from Toriyama. Like, appreciate this. Daima, right now. I am only halfway through Daima. I think there's like 20 episodes or something, right? Like, I am loving this. I am absolutely loving this. Like, yeah, it's not perfect, but I am loving the humor. I am loving so much of it, and I'm appreciating so much of this more and more as I go through episode by episode and really analyze it. So please appreciate this. This is like really, really good. And I highly encourage that you go back and watch the original Dragon Ball. If you enjoy Daima at all, go back and watch the original Dragon Ball. I think you're going to enjoy it. Number 3, the second Demon Realm is incredible. So the title of this episode is Unabara. Unabara means something like the expansive ocean. It's this it's not just an ocean. It's like a big, wide ocean. And that's exactly what this is. I love how imaginative this is. As I was speculating in a previous breakdown, I was saying, are we going to get a bunch of planets in the second Demon Realm? And that's exactly what happened. So in previously established lore, in the supplemental materials, in Toriyama's interviews, we've heard about a planet Kaishin. I guess you could say canonized in a sense in Dragon Ball Daima. They used the term Planet Kaishin, specifically Nahare said Planet Kaishin. And when he was talking about the collars and where the metal comes from and all that, or the Kachinko. The Kachinko is from Dragon Ball Super, sorry. So this is being executed wonderfully. I love how just so fantastical this is. The Kraken showing up and, again, kind of suggesting to us that these mythical creatures came from the Demon Realm. More on that later. So yeah, this is great, and I'm going to talk more about the planets and all that in just a moment. But first, number 4, the sequence with Goku fighting the military police has to be a callback to the Red Ribbon Army Saga. Come on, it has to be. Like, in the Red Ribbon Army, in case you haven't watched it, hopefully you have, but there's so many parts where Goku is fighting, like, literally, like, ships, and cars and people with guns, but he's definitely flying through the sky at multiple times and taking down airplanes and whatever and all these like military vehicles. It definitely, like, this sequence where he's fighting the military police, he jumps out of the ship, just awesome sequence, but also a total callback, and I really like this. I actually just finished watching the Red Ribbon Army Saga a couple weeks ago. I'm currently watching the whole thing with Tenshin Han, the next tournament. So I love this. And I think this is being done in a very organic way. Yeah, sometimes Daima has been going a little too into the nostalgia, but I think that, for example, this sequence was done very organically and subtle. And if you realize it, you realize it. If you don't, you don't. It's not just like elbowing us and saying, hey, you remember this? It's been quite a bit more subtle in many situations. So I'm really liking this. Number 5, the original Planet Namek still exists, even though it's not really hospitable. It seems nobody's there, although one person may be there, or one Namekian may be there. We'll talk more about that in number 10. The Namekians were used as slaves and taken advantage of before they left. And then, well, they left. They went to the planet Namek that we know from the Namek Saga. And a long time later, then Frieza came around and screwed everything up for them. So unfortunately, they lost 2 planets. So this was just really nice. It was nice to get some details confirmed within the story. And it was also nice to see Piccolo there, even though he has never been there, but he did seem to feel something. So it was, I think, a nice character moment for Piccolo as well. Number 6, we now know more about Abura. So Abura was the previous Demon King to Dabura and Dabura's father. So it seems like he wasn't a good king, a good individual. It seems like he was frightful of like outsiders coming into the demon realm. And so he implemented those travel restrictions between the demon realms, but also between the demon realm and the outside universes. And just in case you're not aware, although you probably are, Abura gets his name from the Abra part of Abracadabra, just like Dabra gets his name from the Dabra part of Abracadabra. Number 7. We now know who created the Dragon Ball universe. And no, it's not Zenou. So this was perhaps the biggest and most important information dump in the entire Daima series so far. It was really, really interesting, and I'm going to try to break it down just really quickly and dig into this new creator character, give you a little bit of information about his name as well. So the name of this character is Raimusu. Okay, so the story goes that there was a demon king. So not all demon kings were evil. There was a good demon king a long, long time ago, potentially millions and millions and millions of years ago. There's no date established, but if this is basically at the creation of the outside universe, outside of the demon realm, it very well could be millions and millions of years ago. So we had the demon realm that existed, and then this good king wanted to expand it. So he went to this Majin, this super Majin named Raimusu, and had him create the outside universes. So everything we've seen up until now, all the various universes that we saw in Dragon Ball Super, and of course Earth and Namek, etc., that's all, well, the creation of this character named Raimusu. And if you look at the visual depiction, it looks like Zenou-sama, right? Like from Dragon Ball Super, there's a real strong similarity there. But are they like retconning Zenou, or like, well, I don't know if retcon would be the right word because this happens before like Dragon Ball Super, but anyway, are they like getting rid of Zenou-sama? No, I don't think so. I think both of these characters can work totally fine together. And I will explain that in more just a moment. But basically the story is, yeah, that he created everything, and there was a period of free travel in between the demon realm and the outside universes. So this basically confirms that there are more characters in the Dragon Ball universe outside of the demon realm that trace their lineage back to the demon realm. So whether Emperor Pilaf or Popo or Fangs the Vampire or Dodoria or there's some other like pointy-eared characters that are escaping me at the moment, whether these characters are all from the demon realm, we don't know yet. But it would explain their unique appearances, those pointy ears, the randomness that we saw in the original Dragon Ball. And again, I think this is a great and super simple retcon. It all works wonderfully. Also, we learned that Raimusu is the one that dispatched the Glinds to the universes to be kind of like the monitors, almost like the watchers, as in like Marvel, the Watcher, to watch over the humans and the general humanoids living, the mortals living in the outside realm. We also learn that Saiyans and humans, or Chikyujin, I believe the term that Nahara uses is Chikyujin, which is earthlings. Not necessarily human, because in Dragon Ball, I think Ningen, which means human, is used in a more general term, like humanoid, I guess you might go with that. But anyway, these Earthlings and Saiyans are not from the demon realm. They don't trace their lineage back to the demon realm. They naturally evolved, and so they don't have the pointy ears and all that. So my theory about the great apes having the pointy ears and thus indicating that Saiyans are actually from the demon realm has not played out as far as we can tell at this point in time. But let's talk more about the Glinds. Number 8. The Glinds are going to go extinct eventually. So we find out that the 5 trees that give birth to the fruit that turns into the Glinds, they died off. So no new Glinds can be born. And the death of these trees is, well, maybe not the only reason, because remember, Arinsu implied that Majin Buu also had something to do with this. So perhaps Majin Buu killed those trees, maybe directly or indirectly. But anyway, Nahare says that that is kind of one of the reasons why they left, right? There was no reason to stay behind anymore because the trees were dead. So we're not going to get new replacements for those missing Kaioshin. This explains why we haven't gotten replacements for those dead Kaioshin. And eventually, this could take place like over the course of many thousands and thousands of years, tens of thousands of years or more. but all of the Kaioshin will die unless, I don't know, maybe they wish for those trees to come back using Dragon Balls? We shall see. Number 9, Raimusu is the counterpart to Zenou-sama. He's kind of the opposite, the yang to Zenou-sama's yin. He's the white to the black. He's the other side of the coin. So in case you're confused and you're thinking, oh, what? They just implemented a new like top of the god hierarchy here. And so what? Zenou-sama's been like erased from the continuity. This doesn't work with Super. I know there's been a few people, at least I've heard, that they were thinking that. But no, I don't think that's the case. I think this still works with what has been established with Super and Zenou-sama. So let's remember what Zenou-sama is. Basically, he's at the top of the like god of destruction hierarchy. He can basically delete anything, an entire universe. He can get rid of it. So in a sense, he is the strongest in the universe simply because he can erase anything. He's not a fighter, right? So in that sense, he's not strong, but he can basically nobody can defeat him as far as we know. Okay, there's the Grand Priest. We don't know what's going on with him. That's been a mystery. But for all intents and purposes, Zenou-sama can basically get rid of anything. Meanwhile, we have Raimusu, who can create anything. Okay, he's the one that created everything. And so it seems like that's the god of creator, just like the Kaioshin are the other side of the coin for the Hakaishin, the gods of destruction. It seems that Raimusu is the counterpart to Zenou-sama. Now, given that they look very similar, perhaps Zenou-sama originally lived in the demon realm, even though he didn't have the pointy ears, right? I don't know. Maybe he came from the demon realm or something. There's some relation there. Maybe Raimusu created Zenou-sama and to be his counterpart. We don't know yet, but we may get some answers in the following episodes. I can only assume, and I think it's a pretty likely thing to happen, that Goku and everybody else will have a moment where they do get to meet Raimusu. 2 other things that I want to mention here. First of all, I do find it curious that if Goku ends up meeting Raimusu, he doesn't make any mention or allusion to this when he meets Zenou-sama in Dragon Ball Super. They look similar. They're both like top of the hierarchy gods. And so you would think that Goku would mention something when he meets Zenou-sama, but he doesn't. Speaking of which, I mentioned that they were both at the top of the hierarchy. Nahare specifically mentions that Raimusu is the most erai, the ichiban erai. Erai means most distinguished, highest ranking, something along those lines. It does not mean strongest, okay? So Zenou-sama, like I said, in a sense, you could consider him the strongest because he can defeat anybody just by deleting them. But actually, I think that it's being hinted that Raimusu is actually, well, in a sense, extremely weak or the weakest. Why is this? Well, in order to, explain that, I have to explain to you what Raimusu, the name, actually may mean. So let's break down his name. It seems that this name comes from the word slime. So Raimusu is just a mixed up version of how you say slime in Japanese. Suraimu. So Raimusu, suraimu, right? It's just mixed up. So why would Raimusu get his name from slime? There's a few reasons, and they may all be actual reasons. This may all be true. I don't know. Maybe one is true, or maybe all of them are true. One thing is going back to that whole Zenou-sama being strong and Raimusu being weak. So slime in Dragon Quest, for example, but I'm sure they pop up in other RPGs, similar kind of enemies. These are like the bottom of the hierarchy enemies, right? These are the things you have to kill a bunch of and level up a bit. And eventually, you get so strong and they stay as these weakling little things. So maybe this is an indication that Raimusu is one of these super, super, super weak characters. Yes, he can create anything he wants. He can create entire universes or multiple universes, but he can't fight. He's a total weakling. I don't know, maybe. This could also be a reference to what I just mentioned, the slimes in Dragon Quest, because Akira Toriyama is famous for doing the character designs in Dragon Quest. So this could be a subtle nod to Akira Toriyama and his work on Dragon Quest as well. Also, this could be a nod to evolution, right? This primordial ooze from which all life came. Single-celled organisms evolved into complex life forms and eventually into humans and Saiyans, etc., etc., etc. So it all started with slime, right? Everything started from the weakest thing and exploded, and we had the, I don't know what the Cambrian explosion equivalent is in the Dragon Ball universe, but we had that happen in Dragon Ball as well. So I'm thinking it could be all of these, actually. All of these work as an explanation for why his name would come from slime. But we'll have to wait and see in the coming episodes. Hopefully they will meet up with Raimusu. Number 10. What is Neva's plan? So Neva makes a comeback at the end of this episode very briefly. We don't see him clearly. We just kind of see his mouth. But the voice matches up. I think that voice sounds like the Neva that we heard in, like episode 1 and episode 2 briefly, maybe? So what's going on? Is Neva setting up a trap here because he seems kind of ominous and menacing? Is he trying to get the Dragon Balls for himself? Is he trying to take over the demon realm? I have no idea, but it seems, or at least what's being alluded to, is that something evil is brewing and Neva is behind it. So, time for the review. I really enjoyed this episode. I think the homages, the references are being done in a really good way. I was concerned that there was too much like nostalgia bait, but I think they're doing this really well. They're really hitting their stride. Pansy is really being distinguished with Bulma, and I think you see it very clearly in this episode. You see Bulma being like the cute, sexy kind of, oh, look at my skin, I'm so peachy. And meanwhile, Pansy is like, like, I'm gonna get the Dragon Ball. Like, she's much more like action-y, much more adventure-y, where Bulma is a strong and like resourceful character, but she's got that kind of sexiness, that vainness, which is part of her character, and it needs to be. But I really am getting that distinction between the two characters. We also got Hybis telling Bulma, like, you dissing me, girl? Like, because she says Glorio should do the driving for the airship because Hybis has never been in the second demon realm. And Hybis, he reacts with like, you disrespected me? I love that. Hybis is hitting his jokes. It's great. We got that whole Vegeta scene and Piccolo finally having a moment. The group is back together. We're going to get a fight, it seems, next episode. We got awesome lore and a new character with Raimusu explaining some of the things that we've been wondering about, Glinds, etc., etc. I loved this episode, and I'm looking forward to what is to come. Daima is just so good right now. So I'm going to give this one an 8.5 out of 10. What do you think? Are you liking Daima? Do you agree with my opinions? Or do you think Daima is absolute crap and you just wanted the Moro saga? Don't get me wrong, I wanted it too, but I'm loving Daima and I'm so happy that we're getting this. So let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe. I've got more coming, and I'll see you in the next one.